Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised. My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm discussing the case of Bryce Laspisa. This case is one of the most perplexing I've ever researched. As I dug deeper into the details of Bryce's final known movements, his erratic behavior, unexplained stops, cryptic text messages, and the eventual discovery of his overturned vehicle, I realized that there are a lot more questions in this case than there are answers. Really, each new detail that I uncovered only deepened the mystery. And despite extensive search efforts and countless theories, Bryce's disappearance remains unsolved over a decade later. This is the case of Bryce Laspisa. At about 1 a.m. on Thursday, August 29, 2013, Karen Laspisa gets a phone call that changes the rest of her life, but she doesn't know that yet. The call is from her son, 19-year-old Bryce Laspisa, and Bryce has been going through some rough times lately. He'd actually spent the summer with his parents at their home in Laguna Niguel, California, after his freshman year at Sierra College in Rocklin. And while everything seemed to be fine over the summer, just a few days into his sophomore year, Karen got a call from Bryce's roommate, Sean Dixon. She spoke with him just the day before Bryce makes this 1 a.m. phone call to her, so really just hours before he makes this call. Sean was concerned about Bryce. He tells Karen that Bryce has been abusing alcohol and a prescription drug called Vyvanse. It's a stimulant most commonly used to treat symptoms of ADHD. He says that Bryce has been using it to stay up all night and has been acting just really strange. He adds that Bryce broke up with his girlfriend of about a year, Kim Sly, over text. Bryce had also given Sean his Xbox and a pair of diamond earrings that his mom gave him. Sean just knows that something is off with Bryce. While it's definitely not uncommon for kids in college to experiment, he just really isn't acting like himself, and he's obviously taking it way too far. A few hours after Sean talks to Karen, she gets a call from Bryce too. Bryce is now at Kim's apartment in Chico, California. This is about an hour and a half from his apartment. He went there to break up with Kim in person. According to Sean, Bryce packed up a few essentials and told him that he'd be back in a few days for Labor Day. But during this call, Kim jumps on the phone to echo a similar sentiment to Sean. She says that Bryce is acting really strange. She doesn't want him driving, so she took his keys. And here there's a bit of a back and forth. Bryce gets back on the phone and says that he's fine. He broke up with Kim and just wants his keys back so he can go home. Bryce's father, Mike Laspisa, hops on the phone and asks Bryce if he's okay. Bryce again reiterates that he's fine. In her interview for the TV show Disappeared, Karen explains that Bryce sounded completely normal to her. He didn't seem distraught and he didn't seem heartbroken. It really just seemed like he wanted to go home. But of course, given all that's happening, she is still worried. She tells Bryce that she'll fly up to Rocklin tomorrow so they can talk. But Bryce tells her not to make any flight reservations until they talk. He specifically says he has a lot to talk about. Bryce is 19, he's an adult, and he doesn't appear to be inebriated. There's not much Karen can do other than say okay and advise him to go back to his apartment and call her in the morning. She asks Kim to give Bryce back his keys, and she does. Bryce leaves Kim's apartment in Chico at about 11:30 p.m. Now, that night, Bryce also texts Sean, quote, "I love you, bro. Seriously, you are the best person I've ever met. You saved my soul," end quote. But of course, Karen doesn't know that at this point. She goes to bed thinking that she'll hear from her son tomorrow and they'll talk through whatever seems to be going on with him. But then she gets that 1 a.m. phone call. She assumed that Bryce was back at home in his apartment, but he's not. He's driving and about an hour south of Rocklin. Investigators and Bryce's family still don't know where he was headed at this time. Karen has said that she thinks Bryce didn't really know either, while their private investigator believes that he was headed back to his parents' home. But something made him hesitate. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse, so I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. While his loved ones don't know it yet, Bryce continues driving south for another 8 hours. So he's driving all through the night, until 9 a.m., when he runs out of gas in the small town of Buttonwillow, California. Now, why Bryce ran out of gas is unclear. Obviously, he's passed by countless gas stations, but he either chose not to stop or didn't realize he was running out of gas. Either way, Bryce calls a local repair shop, Castro Tire and Truck. He asks for roadside assistance, and a man named Christian drives to Bryce to bring him 3 gallons of gas. Bryce's parents have no idea this is happening until 11 a.m. That's when they get a notification from their insurance company that this service request was submitted and completed. While Bryce is an adult, his 2003 Toyota Highlander is in his parents' name, and he's still on their insurance. When Bryce doesn't answer his phone, Karen calls Sean and asks if Bryce is still sleeping, but Sean tells Karen that Bryce never came home. Obviously, his parents are worried. They have no idea where their son is, they just know that he called for roadside assistance. But they are able to track him down. In addition to being on his parents' insurance, he's also still using a credit card tied to their account. So they go online and see if there were any recent charges. And that's when they see a charge from the repair shop in Buttonwillow. Mike calls the repair shop. He says his credit card was used for his vehicle and asks for any information they may be able to give him to make sure that his son is okay. He speaks directly to Christian, the man who brought Bryce the gas. And Christian says, yes, a few hours ago I brought him gas. And then like an actual saint, he offers to go back and check and see if Bryce was still there or in the area. And when Christian goes back to the rest stop where Bryce's vehicle ran out of gas, Bryce is still there. At this point, about 3 hours later, Bryce tells Christian that he's fine, he was just getting some sleep, which after driving all night seems normal enough. But Christian does insist that Bryce checks in with his mom. Karen asks him what's going on, but Bryce says that he wasn't doing anything and he was fine. At this point, she's like, listen, you're 3 hours from home, fill up your gas tank and just get here. Bryce agrees, and he gets gas at a nearby station. At this point, it's about noon, so his parents are expecting him home close to 3 p.m. Then 3 p.m. hits, and there's no sign of Bryce. By 3:30, Karen calls his cell phone. There's no answer. But it is Labor Day weekend in California, so she knows that the traffic could be out of control. She figures he'll call back when he can. But he doesn't. So she keeps calling again and again and again, leaving message after message with no response from her son. In her interview with Disappeared, Karen said that at this point, her husband Mike is outside pacing, just waiting for Bryce to pull up. But that doesn't happen. Finally, at 6 p.m., Karen and Mike file a missing persons report with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And they really jump into action assisting this family. In less than 2 hours, they're able to get an emergency ping order from AT&T to get the location of Bryce's cell phone. And what they discover surprises everyone. Bryce has barely moved from where Christian found him earlier. To be exact, he's 8 miles from where he ran out of gas. He's still in Buttonwillow. Now, this is a tiny town. It's actually not even a town or a city. It's an unincorporated community in Kern County. The population is just over 1,000. Some consider the community to essentially just be a truck stop. So it's not like Bryce stopped at the beach or Disneyland or something. His parents have no idea what Bryce could be doing in Buttonwillow for nearly half a day. But they did find Bryce. Officers approach him in his vehicle at about 8 p.m. They ask him what he's doing, and he basically says that he was just planning on blowing off some steam before getting back on the road to see his parents in Laguna Niguel. Now, they actually administer a sobriety test to Bryce, and he passes. They ask him if they can search his vehicle. He agrees. And they don't find any drugs or alcohol or anything illegal. They would later describe Bryce as coherent, alert, friendly, and cooperative. They say that he was in good spirits. But when they tell him that he needs to call his parents because they are very worried about him, for some reason he hesitates. And not just a little, the officer literally has to dial his mom's phone number for him and hand him the phone. At this point, Karen just wants to know what's going on. And really, Bryce kind of blows off the question. He says that he's putting stuff back in his vehicle because the police searched it. And Karen's basically like, no, why are you still in Buttonwillow? And ultimately, he never answers the question. Karen asks the officer if they think Bryce is okay to drive. And they say, yeah, he seems completely fine to them. So Karen tells Bryce to get some food and get home. At this point, it's dark, so she's even more nervous now. But Bryce does agree, and he's removed from the missing persons list. Everyone assumes that Bryce is on his way home. Then, by chance, Karen gets a call from Christian, It seems that Karen called him earlier and he'd missed the call, so he called back and just asked what was going on. She explains what happened, and again, Christian, this angel of a human, offers to check on Bryce or at least confirm that he's left Buttonwillow. Now, Karen actually says no, that's okay, he should be on his way home. Basically, you've already done so much already. But Christian insists. Karen tells him where the police found him, Christian hops in his truck to go check on Bryce, and Bryce is still there. So he calls Karen back and tells her what's going on. Everyone is confused at this point. No one knows why Bryce has been in this same spot for so long, but they focus on getting him home. Christian really does go above and beyond. He says, listen, I'll follow him to the freeway, to the 5 South, to make sure he knows where he's going and that he's actually headed home this time. It takes about 30 minutes, but Bryce finally gets on the freeway, followed by Christian. Christian follows Bryce for about 10 miles before pulling over. Then he calls Karen and tells her that it seems that Bryce is finally on his way home. Now, while he's driving, Bryce and his parents do exchange a few phone calls. Sometimes Bryce calls them, sometimes they call him. At about 12:30 a.m. on now August 30th, Karen calls Bryce and he says that his GPS is telling him that he'll get home just after 3 a.m. They speak again at just before 2 a.m. His parents want to know where he is, that he's actually making some progress on this trip and didn't go back to Buttonwillow. And Bryce says that he's still driving down the I-5 but doesn't really know where he is. They ask him to name some signs or some landmarks, something so they can figure out where he is. And Bryce says that he can't really see anything, but that his GPS says that he's on the right track and he'll be home by 3:25 a.m. At this point, his parents are like, fine, okay, and they end the phone call. But just a few minutes later, Bryce calls back. He says he's too tired to keep driving, and he's going to pull over to a residential area and sleep in his car for a few hours. Again, it does make sense to me. At this point, he hasn't slept in a bed for basically 2 nights. He's only about an hour away from home at this point, but his parents say, okay, just call us when you wake up. They hang up, assuming that they'll hear from him in the morning. What they don't know is that this is the last time they'll hear from their son.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the Keys. Any leads on who they might have been running for?
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
It's 8 a.m. on Friday, August 30th, 2013. And after spending a grueling day trying to help their son Bryce get back home, they hear the doorbell ring. And I imagine let out a huge sigh of relief. They think that after all this time, it must be Bryce. Instead, it's a California Highway Patrol officer. They ask if they own a 2003 Toyota Highlander. And they say that they do, but their son is using it. Then he breaks the news to them. They found the vehicle, but Bryce isn't with it. According to Karen's statements to Hometown Station News, she doesn't really get all the details when she's notified in person. They tell her more when they call her a bit later. But eventually, this is what she learns. At about 5:30 that morning, officers conducting a training exercise found his vehicle overturned on its side on an access road near the Castaic Lake State Recreational Area. It's about 90 miles south of Buttonwillow and 40 miles north of LA, right along the I-5 where Bryce was last known to be. It seems that Bryce's Highlander dropped down a 15-foot ravine. Karen says it went nose down first, then landed on the passenger side. From there, they believe Bryce used some type of tool on the back window to get out of the vehicle. Now, I'm not sure if the door was jammed or what, but they believe that he did leave the vehicle from the window. They do find some of Bryce's blood inside the car. There's a small amount on the headrest of the passenger seat and in the back seat. But they don't find any blood outside of the car at all. So investigators believe that whatever injuries he may have sustained in the vehicle when it went over the embankment, they weren't bad enough to prevent him from leaving the scene. Whatever happened, Bryce seems to have walked away. But here's what's strange. I mean, there are a lot of strange things in this case, but here's what gets me. You'd think that no matter what happened, he'd try to get some help. He'd try to call someone, but he seems to have left everything behind. His phone and laptop are in his Highlander, and his wallet and duffel bag are outside of it. For some reason, Bryce doesn't grab his phone or any form of payment when he leaves the vehicle. Whether this was voluntary or he was trying to get away from something or someone, we don't know. Of course, Karen fears the worst, that Bryce has been in this horrific accident. Maybe he hit his head and is just out in the California desert wandering without any way to call her. So they get to work. Bryce is listed as a critical missing person, and they launch a massive search for him. Now, this is a huge area. The lake is about 2,200 acres, so they're using helicopters, planes, boats, dogs, divers, and search teams on foot. There are hundreds of people out looking for him. They call all the nearby hospitals, but there's no sign of Bryce. And before the end of the day, his case is transferred to the Long Beach Homicide Unit. But not all is lost. While there is no sign of Bryce anywhere, they are able to piece together some of his movements before the crash. It seems that just a few minutes after telling his mom that he was pulling over to get some sleep, a camera snapped a photo of his license plate as he traveled up Lake Hughes Road near the crash site. Basically, this camera only snaps a photo of the license plate, so we can't even confirm that Bryce was driving or in the car. After that, his whereabouts are completely unknown for about 2 hours, until the same camera takes a photo of his license plate again at 4:29 a.m. From here, he or whoever was driving the vehicle drives up a hill near a cell tower, drives over the top of this hill, and starts going down. Now, it's definitely steep, so it's unclear if he meant to go over the edge, but once he does, he actually accelerates, hits a bunch of rocks, and eventually goes over the edge of the embankment nose first and crashes. Again, this really doesn't give us a ton more answers, but we know that his vehicle was in the area, left for about 2 hours, came back, and then crashed. Now, there are more searches for Bryce that weekend, and Mike and Karen kind of divide and conquer. Mike focuses on putting up flyers offering a $5,000 reward for information, while Karen works on getting as much media coverage for Bryce as she can. Bryce's ex-girlfriend Kim also gives them some of his dirty clothing to help the dogs track him down. And they do hit on something. 2 separate dogs trace his trail. They follow his scent from the crash site, down to the dam on the lake, across a bridge, and to a truck stop. Then the trail stops. So this really divides investigators. At this point, there are quite a few theories that they're considering. One, that Bryce was trying to die by suicide. Investigators argue that because of his erratic behavior, seemingly saying goodbye to his roommate, giving away some of his belongings, and breaking up with his girlfriend, that all of this may indicate that he was considering to die by suicide. The second theory, using the same evidence, is that Bryce was intentionally trying to disappear and not be found. The third theory is that Bryce was injured during the crash, and possibly suffered some type of injury that resulted in him losing his life after leaving the scene. A fourth theory is that he suffered from a psychotic break, either naturally, induced by the drugs he was taking, they're not sure. A fifth theory is that he suffered an injury and lost his memory or was disoriented, and was either wandering or got lost or was met with foul play. But because the scent trail ended at that truck stop, some investigators believe this could point to Bryce getting into a vehicle, and whatever happened from there opens us up to many other theories. Bryce's parents don't believe that he would have left his life intentionally. They say that he was happy. While he did have a turbulent few weeks, Bryce spent the entire summer with them and was fine. He wasn't drinking or abusing drugs that they were aware of. He was also doing well in his studies in graphic and industrial design. Karen has described her son as an open book. someone who came to his parents to discuss his problems. And I do think that there's some evidence to back up how close Karen says Bryce was to his parents. When Bryce's roommate Sean felt that Bryce was abusing drugs and alcohol, he pretty much immediately called his parents. When Kim felt that Bryce was acting odd and wasn't able to drive, she told his parents that. Now, this is just speculation, it's just my opinion, but between both his roommate and his girlfriend communicating with his parents like this, it seems like they felt comfortable that they were going to address these issues in a helpful way. Obviously, there's no denying that something was making Bryce hesitant to come home and have this huge conversation with them, but his GPS was set for home and he was traveling in that direction. So I can understand why Bryce's parents and some investigators believe that he did not want to die by suicide or run from his life. Bryce's roommate Sean tells the media that he doesn't think Bryce wants to be found right now, but he adds that he left Bryce's sneakers right next to the door, and they'll be waiting for him when he gets back. And despite the breakup, Kim makes a Facebook page for Bryce in order to help with the search, and she talks to the media too. She tells 4LA News, quote, "I've thought about every possible scenario about where he could be and what could have happened to him. I still remain hopeful that he's out there somewhere trying to get home, and I really hope that he will just show up or call anybody." End quote. Luckily, the media really is all over this, in large part thanks to Karen's efforts. She says she's been overwhelmed by the amount of emails and support she's gotten from the public in looking for Bryce. And I think this is a good time to point out that he would have been hard to miss. Bryce is 5'11" with bright red hair, blue eyes, and a huge smile. He's just someone that stands out in a crowd. But at this point, it seems that no one has seen him, or at least there aren't any credible sightings. It's obviously a very difficult time for Bryce's family. His dad's car even gets broken into while searching for Bryce. 2 men were arrested, and it's not believed to have any connection to Bryce's disappearance. But it just seems like it's been one thing after another for this family. Then, a few days into the search, they get news that makes their hearts drop. About 3 miles from the crash site, a jogger reported a fire. And when they came to put it out, they discovered that it was a body that had been burning. As they wait to see if it's Bryce, his loved ones are split. Sean tells the media that he doesn't think it's Bryce, while his uncle, Frank David, told CBS News that he believed it was more than likely his nephew. But in the end, it wasn't. It was the body of 35-year-old Lamondre Dion Miles. He'd been shot and then set on fire. As a side note, 3 people were eventually arrested and charged with his murder. But of course, Bryce was still missing. Unfortunately, a few weeks after his disappearance, the search for him is officially called off. Authorities say that he's an adult, and he's allowed to be missing if he wants to be. The school semester and the holidays all end without Bryce returning. At the end of February 2014, his family holds 3 vigils in one day for him. They're hoping for a renewed interest by the media. And in March, Bakersfield News reports that the leads have dried up in his case. Karen tells them, quote, "It's gut-wrenching. Every day not knowing. It's a living nightmare." End quote. In 2015, there's another search of Castaic Lake using sonar, and nothing is found. Investigators say that they are certain that Bryce is not in that lake. Now, Bryce's parents have hired a private investigator, but it doesn't appear that she's come up with much. As of recording this episode, there's been no activity on Bryce's social media, bank accounts, or phone, and his social security number has never been used. Over the years, there have been many sightings of Bryce, but none have panned out. In April 2022, one sighting in Missoula, Montana, piques the interest of detectives enough that they go investigate in person. Detective Ethan Smith told Hometown Station News, quote, "I was able to verify his identity, and it's not Bryce. I believe the photo being circulated of the young man on the bike in Missoula who looks like Bryce is this guy. But sadly, it isn't Bryce. I was astounded by the resemblance between the two." End quote. The last update on the Facebook page his family runs for Bryce was for the 11-year anniversary in 2024. They posted, quote, 11 years ago on August 30th, 2013, Bryce went missing. Still no answers or closure. No confirmed sightings. But we appreciate continued thoughts and prayers, keeping Bryce's story alive. End quote. Which brings me right to our call to action. After all the research, the interviews, and timeline reconstructions, Bryce Laspisa's disappearance remains one of the most baffling cases I've ever encountered. And I don't say that lightly. Despite all this time that's passed, there's still no definitive explanation for what happened in the early morning hours near Castaic Lake. But one thing is clear. Bryce's family has never given up hope. And neither should we. Advances in technology, renewed public interest, and the persistence of those who continue to search for answers all offer a reason to believe that one day clarity may come. More answers may come. Until then, we owe it to Bryce and to his loved ones to keep asking the hard questions and to refuse to let his story fade. As a reminder, 19-year-old Bryce David Laspisa went missing from the area of Castaic Lake in Southern California on August 30th, 2013. He is 5'11", weighed about 170 pounds when he went missing, and has red hair and blue eyes. He was last seen wearing white cargo shorts, a blue and white checkered shirt, and red and white Nike brand shoes. He does have a tattoo of a Taurus bullhead and a Roman numeral on his left shoulder. Anyone with information is asked to call the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department at 818-984-0630. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The emotional support puppies are in the room, and let's go right to the case. Now, Bryce's case is one of these cases where I remember his face. I remember his face, and I remember that the case was like stranger than fiction, or at least that's how I saw it on social media. And you guys know how I like to dive into these cases that feel really, really strange, and certainly this one is strange and mysterious, but I like to go in and break it down and use logic and reasoning without jumping to crazy conclusions. So I hope that's what I did here. Now let's talk about media discrepancies. There were a lot of dates and times were a little off across reporting. There was one major offender I wanted to talk about, and that was the Office of the Attorney General in California. They list that he's been missing since August 12th, 2013, like a few weeks before he went missing, and that just really irked me. Because you think, when you're reporting on these cases, think about a journalist looking at this case. That, the Office of the Attorney General should be a solid source to get this information from. So why do they have this date wrong? And I imagine that it's been up there wrong for quite some time. It's just one of those things that is extremely disappointing, especially when it comes to the case of a missing person. getting the date and location is extremely important when we're looking for these people. So, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't that surprising, but it was disappointing. I just hate it when that happens. Now, this might shock you guys. I thought the disappeared episode was really good, and let me tell you why. I feel like they don't usually run this way, but in this episode, they basically let Bryce's parents tell this story. They were the ones that were there, they're the ones that were going through this, and they're the ones that propelled so much of this case. And I really think that this is the way to do it. And I know that not every case has this luxury where there are so many people who are firsthand involved in the case that can speak about it later on, that are willing to speak about it later on. I think that these were optimal circumstances for this episode, and I honestly thought it was really well done. So shout out to Disappeared, because I think you guys know that often when I watch these shows, I find a ton of discrepancies. And usually, in addition to the discrepancies, I should say, it's like the format of the episode. They are there to produce a show and move it along. And so some things are just kind of wonky, they don't line up. And this episode wasn't completely free of that. For example, when Karen is finding out Karen and Mike, I should say, when they're finding out the news about what happened to Bryce, when the officer comes to their door, in the show, they make it seem like everything happened right then and there. They don't explain that Karen got a phone call later on to talk about it and give her more details. And it's not the end of the world. It's not the biggest thing. I just like to be accurate in my reporting. So overall, I was pleasantly surprised. I would recommend. But of course, as always, it's not perfect when you create a show for entertainment purposes like Disappeared is made. But I promise I'm really not trying to take away from it. This is probably the best episode of Disappeared I have watched when it comes to researching a case for this show. So again, would recommend. Now let's move on to the hero of this episode, or heroes, and this is probably going to come as no surprise. His parents. Hello, his parents. My goodness. It was devastating and inspiring all at the same time to research them going through this. And their persistence, they were like dogs with a bone on this one. They can't find him. They get this, insurance alert, and then they're like, let's check the credit card. They find it. They call the shop, talk to the guy. You guys, these parents went above and beyond, and I'm getting emotional. I feel like every missing person deserves to have parents like Bryce's. So for many, many, many reasons, they make the heroes of this episode. But I also have to shout out my man, the angel of this episode, the angel of this case, Christian. This man who just appeared at this shop or whatever. Again, getting emotional. This man didn't know Bryce. This man just came and brought him some gas. And he really went above and beyond to continue checking on Bryce. And he didn't participate in the Disappeared episode or anything, but Christian, if you're out there listening, if you are still following Bryce's case and you're listening, you're awesome. Every human should be as wonderful as you. We should all be so lucky to have a Christian in our case. I could go on and on about Christian, you guys. That man, an angel. And I didn't hide it in the episode. I thought that was more than appropriate to put my opinion in the episode and call him an angel. So I don't regret it. But let's move on to our segment of hope. This comes from Heidi Hatch at KUTV on Monday, June 2nd, 2025. And the article reads, Missing South Jordan Teen Found in Colorado, 548 miles from last known location. Now, this case is out of South Jordan, Utah, and I don't want to say her name. This is a 15-year-old girl who had been missing for 6 weeks, and she was found safe after she walked into the Stetson Hills Police Precinct in Colorado Springs. Again, like I said, over 500 miles from where she was last seen. She was last seen at a UTA track station in Provo, Utah. So they aren't saying a ton. They literally say, like, the only information we're able to release is that she turned herself in. They don't know how she traveled to Colorado. But a witness in Provo told South Jordan police that she talked about plans to travel to Las Vegas. But investigators they can't confirm that she ever went there. What they do know is that she was in contact with several adult men on the day that she left school. And I will say their names. This includes 35-year-old Matthew Menard of Miami, Florida. Charging documents say that the two were planning to meet in Las Vegas on April 21st, the day she disappeared. Now, there is a quote from the detective from the search warrant that the detective wrote. Quote, Matt and the victim also have extensive conversations where they plan on the juvenile running away from home to meet him in Las Vegas. Matt tells the victim he will fly to Las Vegas for a business trip later in May, and she can lay low until he gets there. They then plan to fly to Los Angeles, California together for several days before ultimately going back to Miami, Florida, where Matt lives. End quote. He told her that he would pretend to be her dad so they could be seen in public together. So this disgusting individual knew exactly what he was doing. He did turn himself in to the South Jordan police last week and appeared in court in Utah County on Monday, just hours after she showed up at the Colorado Springs precinct. It seems a little unclear on how she was able to travel. It looks like a lot of this travel does require an adult to sign for them, so it looks like they're still trying to figure it out. At least the reporter is. I have to imagine that the police know. It looks like they ultimately identified him because she handed over the phone number they were talking through. After they reviewed her iPad, they found sexually explicit conversations between them on Discord. So parents, check your kids' Discord. Now it looks like a third man, William Taylor Glynns, 37 of Texas City, Texas, has also been charged in connection with the case. He faces charges of attempted aggravated exploitation of a minor and sexual exploitation of a minor. Now, we don't know what happened to this girl before she turned herself in and over to police, but we do know that she's safe now, and that's why it makes our segment of hope. It does say that she's in good health and that she's safe, and after being gone for 6 weeks, I can't even imagine what this was like for her loved ones. I can't imagine what it was like for her. She's 15. This is not her fault, and I'm just really, really glad that she's safe. And that's why it makes our segment of hope. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.